Hello everyone, James Donaldson here, and I'm bringing you a video on how to buy a silencer. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, getting right into it, let's talk about how to buy a can. This is the third and final kind of part to my little series on suppressors, and mainly about how we don't call them silencers. But getting into it, giving you a lot of other information, now I want to tell you how you can make one of these your very own. So there are a few methods to doing it. I'm going to go over those. I'm going to try to keep this video shorter than some of the other ones. So getting into the meat and potatoes, the paperwork. So when I talk about paperwork, what I'm really referring to is there's a bunch of paperwork and you can fill it out, or the person helping you with your transfer can fill it out, usually for a fee, or they charge you a larger transfer fee and that service is built right in. Either way, you're going to have some actual paperwork, and then to go with it, you're going to need fingerprints of a certain variety, and you're going to need a passport photo. You're also going to need some way of paying for the $200 tax stamp. Being a NFA regulated item, you have to pay $200 per suppressor. Kind of like you would some other NFA items like short barrel rifles. For every short barrel rifle you buy, $200 has to come with it for that tax stamp, which is a form of registration. So again, not illegal, just heavily regulated, which is dumb. Not because I just want to own these easier, but because, well, go back and watch my other videos if you want to know. Anyway, the final part of that is you're going to include some other form of paperwork, whether it's a trust or you're buying it personally, and I'll kind of talk about the difference briefly later on. Now, getting into it, with most things involving purchases, I'm going to incorporate our friend, Chick. So, Chick wants to buy this suppressor. So let's go with the simplest form to do it. Chick walks into Seal's gun store, and she is selling a variety of suppressors. Chick picks out the Osprey 40 for reasons. So, after doing that, Chick basically gives money to Seal, and Seal processes the information. More than likely, if a store is selling them, they're going to help you with the paperwork. So there's not really anyone else going to be involved. It's just going to be Chick and Seal, and before Chick leaves, Chick will likely have all that stuff done and probably have paid for the suppressor as well. Now, once that happens, basically, Chick leaves and Chick waits because of how the NFA items are regulated. There is a completely different background check process, which is very in-depth, and because it also involves registration afterward, there's a whole lot that the ATF does. So, versus with a gun, normally you just fill out a 4473, which I'll talk about in another video, specific to gun purchases, but you just fill out a 4473. The seller does a background check over the phone, and then you walk out, depending on your state, with the gun that day or however many days after. You don't get to take this home until the background check is done. And the background checks often take anywhere from, on average, I'd say 9 months to a year. There's some people, I know a friend of mine recently bought 3 suppressors and they all came back about 6 months later. That's pretty quick. As far as these go, quickest I've ever heard of was about 3 months. Maybe somebody got them quicker, I don't know. Point is you're looking at a long wait. So you're definitely not going to hang around the store. And this is in, by the way, all the cases that I'll be talking about and ways to buy a suppressor. So, that's the store one. I'll get into what you do after the wait period's over, but that's how you purchase one from a store for the most part. Now, buying online. Chick is clicking through, and Chick sees another Osprey on a gun broker being sold by none other than Chameleon. So, Chick clicks buy now, and then over the phone or email or however, gives Chameleon the payment information, credit card number, debit card number, sends a money order, however they agree to pay. And then of course Chick also has to send the SOT information. SOT stands for Special Occupational Tax. Most people who are an SOT are probably also an FFL. If you want to see a video on purchasing things over line or online, then go ahead and go back to my video on the truth about the internet and gun show loophole. So, coming back to the present where we are now, this will get shipped to an SOT. You can't have these shipped to your house, just like you can't have a gun shipped to your house. So, that'll be shipped to your SOT. Now, Chameleon is not going to be helping do the paperwork. In fact, there's an extra waiting period where the ATF approves the Osprey going from Chameleon to, you guessed it, in this case, Great Plains Guns, because that's who Chick uses for FFL and SOT work, as well as gunsmithing. So, basically, it could take a couple months, maybe more, maybe a little less, for the ATF to say, okay, you can send this Chameleon to Great Plains Guns. And so once it's there, now I'm sure not everybody does this, but what I like about Great Plains Guns is their thought is that because they could be sent the wrong serial number, even if they have the paperwork done, they do not send it to the ATF until the suppressor shows up, and then they can verify the serial number on the suppressor. That way, Chick knows that everything is not going to be sent back, that it'll more than likely go through the first time, and that means less waiting period. Yay! So, basically, works similar if you buy off a website versus gunbroker. Similar, you're going to do the transaction, the actual purchasing, paying for shipping, whatever. There's no cost for the transfer from the seller to the SOT. And Great Plains Guns, for instance, of the date of this video, charges $75 for the transfer fee. But not only does that have to do with the transfer fee, but they're also going to be storing your can for you, and they do the paperwork for you. So all that's a pretty good deal. Don't tell them, but I would probably pay $100. So $75 is a pretty good amount of money, all things considered, in terms of what they're doing for you. So, moving right along, there's another way to buy online, and that's from a company called Silencer Shop. So basically, Chick clicks on to Silencer Shop, chooses the guns, chooses maybe an accessory or two, and then chooses Buy Now. So Silencer Shop has what are called kiosks. They're kind of like an ATM machine or something like that in different gun stores. And so they've kind of partnered up with these gun stores. So, for instance, this nice lady right here, she owns a gun store, and she has a Silencer Shop kiosk in the gun store. So Chick can go to the kiosk, do the fingerprints, to my knowledge, do the passport photo, etc., etc., basically square away the paperwork through the kiosk. And then, when the paperwork is done, the suppressor is shipped to the store owner. So, suppressor leaves Silencer Shop and then shows up at her shop. And then she's good to go, and Chick can come in. So, we're kind of getting to the end of the waiting period. So let's say 9 months have come by, Chick gets the call, your tax stamp is in, your suppressor is ready to pick up. Well, you show up, they give you the can, you fill out a 4473, just like you would when you're buying a gun. The difference is, because you just sat through a 9-month or however long waiting period, they're not going to then do another background check. So, that being said, they just fill out a 4473 to keep a record of the transaction, and then you leave, it's yours. So, getting into caveats and variables. One big thing is that while your can is in, as they call it, ATF jail or ATF prison, which is just when it's with the SOT while you're waiting, you can actually use it. No pun intended. So for instance, Seal here, she not only owns a gun store, but it's also a shooting range. So since Chick is buying the Osprey from Seal, Chick can actually show up and use the Osprey at Seal's range. Now, in other circumstances, let's say like it's a friend of yours that does it out of their house, being an SOT, you can just go shooting with them wherever. So basically, as long as the SOT is in possession / control of the can at all times, you can still use it. Some people go ahead and do this because they think, well, I spent the money, I might as well get my money's worth out of it. Absolutely. And other people know themselves, and they know that the wait period will be all the more difficult, getting just a little taste of what they purchased. So they don't do that at all. I can understand both sides. So, I can't remember if I already recommended or said that the ATF recommends that you go ahead and possess your paperwork or a copy of it when you are going around with your item. And so that way, if anyone who actually gives a crap wants to stop you and ask you about it, you can then show proof of paperwork. That's what they recommend. I actually don't know anybody that does that, but again, that's what they recommend. Now, you don't have to use a trust. What's a trust? Well, a trust is where you set up a trust like you would anything else, and trusts can actually possess things like cars and other things of that nature, including NFA items, or even guns. So, where is this relevant? Well, as I understand it, if you have your NFA item under a trust, that way, decades from now, when Chick passes on, Chick's children, such as Frog here, can then inherit the item. In other circumstances, whereas if you do it individually, the wait time is, as I hear, shorter. However, when Chick passes, this can gets taken away by the ATF. So, quite unfortunate, but that's what I hear. Now, I will mention that if you, like a gun broker, you'll see a set, like a gun coming with a can. You buy them together, pay for 2 items as you would any other thing. But when everything comes to your FFL/SOT, because it's obviously going to be somebody that does both, they're going to hold on to the can. However, you can take the gun home. One other caveat to that, sometimes you can do what's called a pin and weld. For something to be a short barrel rifle, not getting into the weeds of that too much, it's got to be a 16-inch barrel. However, if it's shorter, basically having a muzzle device such as a brake or a flash hider welded onto the end technically makes the barrel longer. Well, it's the same effect with suppressor. If you have a suppressor mounted at the very end of your barrel, bringing the overall length of the whole thing up to 16 inches, then what you can do is you can order an integrally suppressed rifle, which most of them are going to have a very short barrel length, and however, having the suppressor on there, you're only paying for 1 tax stamp, being for the suppressor. If you're otherwise going to have an SBR with no suppressor on the end, short barrel rifle, you'll pay a tax stamp for the rifle, tax stamp for a can if you put one on the end. I think you can see the value in putting them together, especially when you're really just going to have them together all the time. So, that's it for caveats and variables. Getting to the close. I think I've hopefully made it clear that the process is pretty simple. Even though I talked about different processes, I hope this video didn't seem complicated. That said, the sooner you go out and purchase one, the sooner you will own one and have it home with you. And of course, as I've said in the other videos, the more private ownership there is of these cans, the more awareness will spread. The more awareness spreads, people will realize, as I've said in other videos, that these are not just tools intended, in fact they're not at all tools intended for clandestine murder. Instead, they're simply safe hearing devices that also have a lot of other benefits. Again, watch my other videos. So, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like by hitting the thumbs up. Of course, subscribe to the channel, join us on Patreon, and naturally, if you want to leave any comments with questions or anything like that, feel free to do so. This is James with The Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.